Hello there and welcome back to another review. So in the interest of trying to keep things varied and mixed up on this channel with my movie reviews, I do try and vary it up for you guys, well, as best I can anyway, but I thought today we'd have a look at the seminal sci-fi classic that is TRON, made back in 1982, directed by Lisberger, and starring Jeff Bridges and David Warner. I believe the inspiration for the film obviously came, I think, widely known, it come from Pong, and I'm right in thinking that originally the film, I think it was originally just going to be animated. I don't think there was actually going to have human actors in it originally. I don't think that was originally how it was conceived. I think it was just going to be an animated piece. But I think they started to be open to the idea of adding sort of live action elements into it as well. So this was one of the first films that really made proper use of any form of computer animation. And you know, nowadays, like I always say, it's not that I'm against CGI. I mean, most films nowadays have some form of CGI, some computer technology. But even TV shows, adverts, whatever you name it. But I think the problem with a lot of filmmakers today is they rely too heavily upon it. I'm not against using CGI. Sometimes it's very much needed and it works, but we as an audience see CGI all the time. CGI, anything, you know, on a green screen, it's nothing new to us. And I just wish, like, overall filmmakers used it a bit more seldomly than what they do. But, you know, TRON very much was the first of its kind. You know, it was the first of that, like, using computers, this sort of new technology, as you will, to sort of, you know, give something visually new to the audience. You know, I think with like this being backed by Disney, obviously, that a lot of the animators from sort of the old school hand-drawn animation, I think that they were not fans of this movie, as maybe they saw it as like a threat. Like the times were changing, you know, hand-drawn animation wasn't the thing to do anymore, like, because computers are coming in. And I think a lot of the, like I say, I think the Disney in-house, a lot of the animators were not fans of this. I mean, nowadays, do you even get hand-drawn animated movies anymore? I'm sure you do. I'm sure they still do happen, but it's a shame that seems to be sort of a bygone era where, you know, talking of like the old school classic Disney movies, you don't really get that anymore, do you? It's mainly just CGI and, like I say, computer animated stuff, which is a real shame. It is a real shame. You know, animated movies always, you know, just CGI, for, you know, thanks to the likes of Toy Story and movies like that, and, you know, that period sort of 95, 96, followed by, like, as well, Bugs Life. You know, I think that's when times really did change in terms of, you know, like family animated movies. But, you know, but TRON was quite revolutionary, and despite all its effects, you know, and the new animation it was showing, the film, what it does have to give some credit for is that it doesn't forget actually to tell a story as well. This film could have easily been just all style, no substance. It could have been just like, look what we can do on these new things called computers. But they do, what is so great about TRON is they don't forget to actually have a narrative in there. And watching the film recently, it still does hold up. I think it's one of them movies that I think everybody should see. Whether you like it or not, obviously, is all subjective and down to you. But I think it's one of them movies that everybody should just say, yeah, I've seen TRON. Just got to say, this was 82. I mean, this was really new. This was quite groundbreaking, and I say it still does hold up. Obviously, computers and the technology at the time were very limited compared to nowadays. And I think around like some frames in this movie, I think they could take up to, I think it was 4 to 6 hours to sort of animate and get like finalized, which is brutal. That sounds completely brutal. Like 6 hours just to do one frame of a film. That is crazy. I mean, yes, there is like computer jargon in this movie, and the dialogue, you know, it is a bit techno babble here and there, but this is very much a movie for like the gamers of the day. It's sort of a movie about gaming before video gaming was like sort of the behemoth that it is nowadays. And at this time in the 80s, the early 80s, is very exciting, new technology, new forms of entertainment, and TRON hones in on that to great effect. I mean, this was 82, and I think it was a movie for gamers of the day. I think, I know I've reviewed it previously, but like The Lawnmower Man as well. I think that film is often overlooked, but I think in many ways I often associate that movie being for gamers as well, because that was like 92 time. And I think although it isn't like doesn't, it's not labelled as a gaming movie. It's almost like it was sort of aimed at gamers in a way. Tron definitely is aimed at gamers. So such a task was trying to make. I think around nearly 600 people were involved with the post-production in terms of the animation, inkers and sort of staff and things like that. But there is no other movie that looks like Tron, and it is a film that I never watched properly or even understood until I was in like my early teens. When I was younger, I liked the visuals, but I didn't really know what was going on. I'll openly admit that. I probably watched it properly from start to finish and understood it when I was around maybe 11 or 12, but it used to be one of these films that was on bank holidays, or it was on at Christmas, or it'd be like the weekend movie or something like that. I loved the visuals, loved how it looked, but when I was really young, I just didn't understand it. I didn't understand sort of what was going on. What is ironic as well, despite all the milestones that Tron made, is, as there was really no other film like it at the time, the Motion Picture Academy refused to nominate the film for like any visual effects awards at all. Like, it just was not nominated at all. I think one could argue on the basis like they thought the filmmakers cheated as they used like computers, and I think people were scared, like, well, computers, that's alien to us. They had no idea what computers were, how to use them. They didn't want to know. It's like, you're using a computer, that's cheating. It's sort of, I think that's incredibly unfair, because it's like, yeah, we're using a computer, but there's still work involved. It's not like we're just pressing one button, yeah, the frame's done. I mean, like I mentioned, 4 to 6 hours to get one frame of the film done is crazy. But as I say, it wasn't nominated for any visual effects awards at all. But the movie, rightly so, is a cult classic. I would imagine if you would have been about 12 to 13 watching this at the cinema for the first time, and you were into like this new thing called video games, then this would have been one hell of a trip for you. So I love how when the film starts, like the title screen, and it just has them Pong vibes. And basically there is this evil computer system known as Master Control. David Warner as Dillinger is the president of Encom, which is the company housing the Master Control program. And he also plays Sark, who is like the program sort of inside like Master Control doing his bidding. We meet Jeff Bridges as Flynn, who sends this computer program, who is also Jeff Bridges, in to hack the mainframe but gets caught. And the whole idea with Tron is that the people who control or send something into the system, they are represented and sort of look like their human selves in the program, which I think is what confused me when I watched it when I was really young, because it's like you have Jeff Bridges in the real world and there's Jeff Bridges inside, and I wasn't sure how he got from here to there, but obviously the whole idea is the program looks like the user sort of that created it, if that makes sense. So Master Control wants to know who his user is, the user being the real Flynn in the real world. So in the real world, Dillinger is like talking to Master Control, who informs him that Flynn has been sniffing around again. So they shut down some of Encom's access for employees and anyone with Group 7 access for added security reasons. And one of the personnel is Alan, who is developing like Tron, which is a new computer system. And yes, he plays Tron in the system. Again, I think that's where I got lost when I was little. And it really does tap into that idea of writing files and writing programs, and makes it, even like for that first 10 minutes, it does take some setting into the movie to get the premise and the setup. But once you get it and you understand it, you're fine, you're off. But as I say, when I watched it, I just was like, I didn't, 6-7-year-old me was like, what is going on? So Alan and Laura, who is like dating one of his co-workers, go and warn Flynn, who is like, he's like a video game designer and runs like an arcade and is like an ex-employee of Encom. We learn that Dillinger stole Flynn's video game ideas, and that is what helped him rise through the company, and Flynn is trying to get evidence of that. Basically, like, Dillinger just stole his ideas and he's trying to sort of get evidence of what happens. Master Control, though, has become power hungry. He wants to take over the Pentagon and the Kremlin and feels he can run things better than any human. So the film does tap into that notion of AI too, and computer system having its own thoughts and goals, and threatens to expose Dillinger if he doesn't help him. So our trio plan to go back into Encom as a team and unleash Tron. So whilst attempting to find evidence, Master Control shoots this laser at Flynn that like digitizes him and sends him into the grid. And it's just a shame that damn that laser was right behind him and pointing right at him. That laser was, he could have that chair, if that laser hadn't been there, he wouldn't have got digitized and sent into the program. Sark, as I mentioned, is he's sort of the computer program running things for Master Control. Sark is not sure, as Flynn is a user and it is users who wrote them. So, however, Master Control wants him in the games. And I do love when Flynn's getting pushed around by the guards, and he's like, "Who you calling program? Probably one of my favourite lines from the movie, which I always remember very fondly Jeff Bridges saying. The outfits in this probably do have a lot to be desired. Very of the time, very 80s, early 80s vibe. But if that whole what I've been talking about has confused you, if you've never seen it, I'm sure most of you have seen Tron, so this is nothing new. But I'm just sort of going to try and just run through the film and sort of what happens. So all these other programs sort of slash people all get an identity disc, and it's basically sort of run as like a recruitment program for Master Control. Flynn meets Ram, who is like a program for like an insurance company. We meet Tron, who is Alan's image, and Flynn has to have a game of like highlight with him. Flynn wins, though he won't finish the guy. Sark, however, intervenes and makes him fall to his doom. And it's one of them movies like, I'm probably like, you shouldn't analyze it too much. Just take everything at face value. As I say, once you have and understand the basic premise, you can just go with it. You can just go with Tron and have fun, and you can just delve right into it. But I think the film is incredibly important. Tron. It's played relatively kind of straight by the actors, but in terms of like cult movies, I mean, Tron is right up there. I think when I say it's a film everybody should watch, I think you should. I mean, it's very important movie, sort of one of the first big sort of visual effects, new with computer technology, and I think for that basis it's worth seeing, just seeing alone. But I'd say once you understand the basic premise and you can just go with it. And it's one of them movies that, despite all its computer jargon, it is relatively simple, and it's just the kind of movie you are meant to have fun with. So then, of course, we have the iconic Tron light bikes, which is probably, if nothing else, what people always remember from the movie. And I always remember seeing this for the first time, loving it. And it always, for some reason, I always liken them to sort of the speeder bikes from Return of the Jedi. I do not know why. I don't know if it's the noise they make, the engine noise. Maybe it was just, some of the sounds, the angles. It just reminded me of sort of the Endor speeder bike chase from Jedi. Even now, the light bikes in Tron is still such a cool scene. Flynn, Tron and Ram taking a legal exit, and that is in a wall from like a crashed bike. They are pursued by the recognizers, as they are known, which are sort of like TIE fighters of the Tron world. So Tron has to get to the input-output tower. They all have a drink of this like water that is like a power source. Ram and Flynn get their bikes blown up. Flynn helps Ram, and he falls asleep, even though they both just had their fill of this like energy water. Like they have this water. They seem like sort of all energized and everything like that. And they have just a drink of water, which sort of is like a power source. And then sort of Flynn helps Ram and sort of falls asleep, even though, like I say, they both had this energy water. So it turns out that Flynn can sort of manipulate parts of the mainframe and creates like a recognizer for him and Ram to fly him, though Ram does die. Tron meets up with Yori, who is like the computer version of Laura, and she is like, well, they haven't built a circuit that can hold you. And Flynn, meanwhile, is driving to the tower. Once there, he knocks one of the bad guys out and becomes red like they are. I think I did read somewhere they actually had... Was it... I was just thinking there, wasn't Robin Williams in talks at one point to play the Flynn character? I could be totally wrong. But I think Robin Williams was in talks or discussions to do the Flynn role. It'd be very interesting how that would have played out. So Yori is helping sort of Tron get in. They meet Dumont, who is like a Guardian program. They need to use him to communicate with his user, Dumont being like a tower Guardian. So Tron communicates with Alan, and his identity disc becomes like a code disc that is freedom or something along them lines. Again, just go with it. Just doesn't really matter. Just go with it. So Tron and Yuri take this stolen transport, Solar Sailor. Flynn meets up with them, and he tells them about Ram didn't make it, and that he is a user, not a program. I love Sark as well when he's punishing Dumont. It's like very funny. Maybe I should keep you around just to make me laugh. I love how Sark just completely hates this guy, and he's like, yeah, very funny. After almost being caught, Flynn creates like a junction to help them escape. The Solar Sailor being like a cross between looks like a old television aerial and like a butterfly, if you can imagine such a thing. They crash into Sark's ship and out of nowhere are on board, and they say Tron is dead, but of course he isn't. He does battle with Sark and throws his disc at his head. Master Control gives Sark some of his powers and he just grows in size. Master Control is just like a giant big red head, by the way, in case you were wondering. Sort of an end boss like Andros, like something from the end of Star Fox. Something he looks like a Star Fox villain from like the SNES Star Fox. So yeah, he's sort of this big head. Yori and Flynn, of course, have a kiss. Flynn jumps into Master Control and sort of dissolves him and like Sark, and every tower lights up. As I say, when I was younger, this film confused the hell out of me, as I didn't know what the rules were. I couldn't make all that much sense of it. I was totally bewildered by this movie. And like I say, going over the movie like I have been for this review, I've probably tripped and slipped a few times in terms of the plot and what happens, but I'm just trying to recount like sort of what happens sort of from memory and everything like that. So yeah, as I said, I've probably made it sound a lot more complicated than what it is. But so suddenly Flynn is back in the real world with evidence against Dillinger, and he gets zapped back by the gun. And I'm not sure if any of you know actually, but one thing I was never quite sure of, like how long was he in there? You know, what is the time scale in Tron? Flynn now out becomes the new boss, and the film, like a lot of kung fu movies, when you talk about films ending abruptly, Tron ends really abruptly. Like it ends really, really quick. It just ends with Flynn, sort of the new boss. He lands by helicopter, and that's sort of the end. Like he's the new CEO, boss, whatever of the company. But it's a very, you know, take nothing away from Tron. It's a very monumental film, and it's one of them movies that I think everyone should see. As I say, even if you only just watch it once, just to say you have seen Tron. As I say, the effects I think for the most part still look good today, but above all they suit the film perfectly, and it represents that era of gaming and computer technology so well. And then there really has been nothing like, I mean there have been some movies that have come close, but in terms of like technology and sort of groundbreaking movies, Tron is up there. You know, it really is up there, and it's one of them films that was ahead of its time. It was like, you know, we got these new things called computers, right? We can use them in movies now. Like we can use them to show different things sort of that you hadn't seen before. And it was all, as I say, it was all new. And I think a lot of people were very intimidated by that. I think a lot of people were like, oh, computers. What are these things? Like I said, the Motion Picture Academy not even nominating it for any awards. I remember this film being on all the time, like I mentioned, on bank holidays and Christmases and times like that. And it wasn't like I mentioned, you know, until maybe 10 or 11 that I really sort of fully, when I say sort of watched it, I watched it, I think it was around that age when I sort of fully appreciated it, is what I'm trying to say. I sort of mentioned, I'm sure most of you have seen Tron, and if you haven't, go out and check it out, because it's one film that there's numbers of films that everybody should see, but I think Tron, in terms of groundbreaking, using new technology and new visual effects, Tron is definitely one worth checking out. But again, trying to keep it mixed on this channel, trying to give you different reviews from different movies, like different genres, things like that. I do review a lot of kung fu movies and Hong Kong movies, and I will continue to do that, but I do want to just sometimes give a mixed bag. I mean, sometimes I do like to watch other films as well, and as I just watched Tron again recently, I thought I'd just give my thoughts on it. But again, as I mentioned, I'm sure loads of you have seen Tron, I'm sure most of you have seen Tron, but if you haven't, please make sure to go and check it out, because it's a groundbreaking cult movie. So thank you very much indeed for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review. I'll see you again soon.
Don't concentrate on the finger, or you will miss all that heavenly glory.